Playoff basketball, Andy, and the Detroit Pistons. My goodness. Who would have thought at the beginning of the season? Pistons ended up finishing the season 44 and 38. So 44 and 38 was the final record. And you and I did not predict that. I can't believe here we are, the sixth seed for the Pistons, and you and I are doing preview for the playoffs. Rewind a year ago, we are talking like Sean Murphy. We're talking to Pistons Jack. Shout out to those guys. We were talking to Piston Mike. Shout out Piston Mike. And we were all just like, oh, I'm glad it's so over and prepared for another long rebuild. I don't think any of us predicted this. So, Andy, what do you? Well, we can let everybody know where they can find you before we get started.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan. I mean, I was only off on the win total by like 20 wins. I mean, that was pretty close, right? No, I'm happy as can be. I mean, to be looking forward to a playoff series, not a play-in game, but a playoff series. Even if they stink it up and choke like 4 games of playoff experience, if you would have told me that they were going to get that this season, I would have never believed it. So I'm so happy.
When did your belief finally sink in that it's like, oh, they're not only going to be in the playoffs, but they're not in the plan?
Um, I was a very slow person to come around because even in the beginning of the season, some of their wins, the other team had a player that was hurt, or there was just reasons to say, well, they're winning, but they're not that good. But then they just kept winning. And at some point I was just like, they're just better than I thought they were. And it wasn't just that, but it was just Cade. Cade was so good. He was the difference maker, and he had just enough players around him that they were winning games. And it it was kind of a fluke season in terms of some other teams that we thought were going to be better were bad. And that helps. And like I think you've mentioned that for next season, that next season is going to be a lot harder because not as many teams are going to be as bad, most likely. But yeah, I mean, I had to eventually put away the doubt and just be like, no, they're good. They're much better than I thought.
I said in our last episode, I've been going back and listening to all our old episodes. It's not until March where you and I are finally like, okay, they're actually pretty good, especially at the State of the Pistons, the All-Star break episode. I remember saying I think the State of Pistons is uncertain. I still do believe that for the future after the season's over. But at that point, they were 29 and 26. So even then, we were still like, ooh, they're just over 500. I mean, the season could have gone a bunch of different ways. I don't think anybody really predicted Miami and Orlando were just going to lay an egg the rest of the way, especially Miami. Miami, like, really, I don't know what happened where they had to play Chicago tonight. We're recording this on April 14th or April 16th, excuse me, April 16th, 2025. So the Heat did ultimately show the Bulls shouldn't have been there, but it's still weird that the Heat kind of, I don't know what happened to them down the stretch. But if you would have told me they are in the sixth seed, I would have thought it would have been the other way around, where the Pistons are in the 9, 10 spot, and then the Heat were in the sixth seed. So weird. And then Orlando just had a snake bit year with injuries, but still managed to squeak by and get here in the play-in. So yeah, I think that was the big part of our doubt along the way. And I mean, after you have a 14 win season, you really have faith when the team mostly returns everybody, and the big additions are Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. So it's funny. I don't think there's a Piston fan out there who could like roast other Piston fans. But you didn't believe in this team. It's like nobody believes in this team, man. It's amazing to see where they're at.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anyone who can be like, oh yeah, I predicted they were going to win, 44 games and be the sixth seed. Like, no, come on, man. Let's be real.
Yeah, shout out JD Sports Tweet. I know he normally will do like bets on over unders, how many triple doubles is Katie gonna have at the beginning of the season. So if anybody wants to know like what people were thinking and what the lines and stuff were, go to JD Sports Tweet because he'll know. And he'll keep the receipts of people that actually did say they would be in the playoffs. I'm sure there's one or two like diehard fans out there that was like, no, they're going to be a playoff team, and I'm sure there's about 50 fans out there that were like, no, they're going to be a play-in team, maybe not a six seed, but still, fantastic season. Before we get in our playoff preview here, Pistons playoff preview, Andy, talk about the season. We're going to hold off on like player reviews, grades, and really breaking down off season stuff until the playoffs are over. But since the season did end, we want to at least give like what's your good, what's your bad from this season, Andy.
The only thing that I mean, obviously, an injury like Jaden Ivey's injury is a bad. Asar Thompson missing the start of the season because of injury is his blood clot issue is bad. Um, Outside of that, the only thing, and this isn't even bad for most people, for me, it's bad, but how happy I think JB is to keep using Dennis Schroeder so much. That would be something that concerns me. The team does need a ball handler, but outside of that, it's the same formula we've always talked about, shooting and defense. Like we can find someone better than Schroeder for that role. But outside of that, it's all happy. I mean, our biggest concern coming into the season, I think, which you got me on, and I agreed with you 100%, was Tobias Harris's fit. And his numbers may not show it, but he was perfect for this team in terms of the role that he played and has continued to play. Um, Asar Thompson has taken a step forward just in the things he's good at. The shooting really hasn't changed. Um, Ron Holland.
So both his 3-point number, his 3-point percentage, and his free throw number percentage went up. That did not go unnoticed and uncelebrated. Those incremental increases are what needs to happen.
Yes, nope, I agree with that. Um, Ron Holland, and honestly, he probably benefited from Asar not being ready to start the season because we were concerned about where his minutes would be, and he just showed that he was ready for minutes and has been able to maintain them the entire season. Some people might say Fontecchio was a disappointment. I think he hasn't had a great season, but it's not as bad as people want to make it look. And on the contract that he's on, I mean, I think he finished the year shooting like 34% from three, which,
33.5%.
okay, 33.5, which it's not good for him, but I mean, it's not like horrific. Obviously, we need him to do better for his skill set, but overall, I don't have very many complaints at all. You know, maybe Stu getting up more 3-point shots, but that's it. A lot of happiness over here for me.
Hey, Andy, why are you mad about the guy shooting 37.8% from the entire field? It got worse than the last time that we recorded. So yeah, I agree. I think it's probably the trade for me. Like I talked about in the last episode, that's the one thing now looking back on it is like, ooh, this team is good, but it could have been even better if the trades had worked those trades differently. And this will be a point I'll bring back up when we do off-season stuff. Is that I am of the belief that any Pistons GM, head of basketball operations, whoever was running the show, the one thing they have to be successful at is trades in order for the team to be any good. Chauncey Billups is the only free agent that's ever been, a good signing that made a big difference in the history of the Pistons. Every other free agent signing has either been like Jeremy Grant or Tobias and Timmy. No, Timmy wasn't a free agent; he was a trade. But Tobias or like Jeremy Grant, where you're like, oh, they're fine. They're good veterans. Jeremy Grant turned into a really productive player, but he didn't have a gigantic impact on the team. I mean, any Piston fan now, if you're not super young, like, do not root for the free agency route. It's just never going to happen. Sorry, that's just the way it is. Every great Piston team has had a trader, a trade savant at the center of it. Trader Jack in the 80s. That's how he was able to wheel and deal and get draft picks or hit on his trades and his guys. And then Stan Van Gundy, I think Stan Van Gundy was on the way to do that. And then I have them of the belief that he was forced to make the Blake Griffin trade. But even then, look at all the trades Stan Van Gundy made. He didn't lose a single one of them. I mean, the deal he got for Tobias was setting off like what Brandon Jennings and like Ersan Ilyasova, just like whatever guys. and Tobias was super productive. I mean, the Reggie Jackson deal, he got him, made him super productive. Even the Avery Bradley one, even though it didn't work out quite the way, he still didn't really have to give up anything to get Avery Bradley. And then that going to work team, Joe D, he gets asked to trade off Grant Hill. But hey, you know what? He got Ben Wallace and Rip Hamilton, my goodness, in that deal together. And then he also, or Jerry Stackhouse, excuse me, back that up. He had to trade off Jerry Stackhouse, but then he got Rip Hamilton back in that deal, and he had to trade off Grant Hill, and he got Ben Wallace in that deal. And then he had to trade off to get another power forward to complete the lineup. And what do you know? It's G's there in the lineup. So I think that's just something that if you look in the history of the Pistons, every great leader of the basketball operations, GM or president, is a really good trader. And I think now too, all the small market teams kind of mirror that, whether it is Sam Presti in Oklahoma City, where he trades for pick. He obviously has house money where he drafted the superstars. And so he was able to still roll them over into other superstars or a bunch of other draft picks. Or even somebody like our arch rivals now, the Pacers, like all the trades that they've been able to work, whether it's kind of on the margins with Obi Toppin, right? The Halliburton for Sabonis ones. Like, I think that's the reality of a small market NBA team, and one where historically they've never really had free agent signings. They might have had one or two that's made a significant impact. So I think that's the big bad part, and why I'm still like uncertain on the future of the Pistons. I hope Fraser Lincoln can get better in the trade market. But in terms of the good, I mean, Cade making the leap up to all NBA, I think it's probably like the number one thing for me, because that's really the only thing that matters. Is we have a superstar, and now we're also of the belief that like it's clear he can get better when he gets more guys around him that can hit open shots. He's going to be better if Jaden Ivey takes a step forward as a number two, or if Asar takes a step forward as number two, or they somehow are able to trade or sign or draft another number two. Like, those are real legitimate things that would make Cade even better. And even by himself, if nothing else changes with the team and everybody else still is like a pretty good role player and whatnot, like those people that thought he would be in the MVP conversation. I mean, he's already in the MVP conversation right now. I think he was like seventh when the last time I saw like ESPN or CBS Sports or one of those run like who would be in the MVP race. He was definitely still in the top 10. So, I mean, Cade being the Cade Cunningham that we all thought he was, yeah, been fantastic. And the whole reason they're 44 and 38. So, Cade, man, and Cade we trust.
Yeah, I mean, even his biggest fans expected a lot from him this season, but I don't know who would have expected this. I think this exceeded all expectations. And other players, made improvements. And the Malik Beasley free agency signing was huge. But what are the odds of signing a player at that price to get that kind of production again? That doesn't happen. So that's not like a thing.
Freeze in a year, they just you sign him anywhere, right?
Yeah, that's not gonna happen. But yeah. So you're not gonna get much negativity from us on this season. Everything surpassed all expectations, especially from what we went through last season. And we won't even mention coaches' names or anything else. We'll just keep moving forward and being happy.
Brought up Tobias and Fontecchio too, because technically they are disappointing, but they're not bad. They filled in the gap. They filled in their role. They filled in the place in the rotation where they need. And also, we are not, even though they might be making big money in Tobias' case anyway, they are not signed to be the guy. They were signed to supplement Asar, to supplement Ivy, to supplement Duran, to supplement Cade, and to some extent supplement Stu. So yes, that's exactly what they needed to do. And they were great and contributed to the winning. So now we move on to the playoffs. The Pistons, in my opinion, they got the matchup that they really should have desired. I do not think they were trying to tank those last two games against the Bucks, because the Bucks and the Pistons were duking it out for the 4 and the 5 seed. That first game really decided who was in the 4 and the 5 seed. I mean, it was clear they were playing to win that game, but you and I talked about this a lot. I think the matchup with the Pacers would have been disastrous. They were 1 and 3 against the Pacers. I mean, there's the whole thing with Stu going off on them. Miles Turner just eviscerated Jalen Duren every time they played him. So I think that was a bad matchup for the two. Whereas with the Knicks, the Pistons were 3-1 against the Knicks. And sometimes people were hurt on both ends. And the three games that the Pistons won were the three last games they played against the Knicks. They lost the first game against the Knicks in like November. And then every time they played him afterwards, they won, including this last one in April, right before the season ends. A good sign when 40% of your wins against the top 10 teams in the NBA come against the New York Knicks. And guess what? You're playing them in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Pistons were 10-23 against the top 10 teams in the NBA. And again, four of those 10 wins were against the Knicks. So I do think it is the matchup that they wanted to. That being said, Andy, what do you think about this matchup? Obviously, we got like Cade Cunningham, we got Karl Anthony Towns, we got Jalen Brunson. You know, Malik Beasley is going to be bombing away threes. What are your impressions of the main guys first that are going to be front and center running the show for both teams?
I agree with you. This was, probably the best matchup that the Pistons could have looked for. Um, One of the flaws for this team, as you pointed out, was their record against the top 10 NBA teams was not good. So then the Pistons, but this is a step you have to take as far as you win the games you're supposed to. That's all you can do. And they exceeded our expectations doing that this year. So they took care of that. If you just look at the talent on both teams, I think obviously you'd have to say that the Knicks are a more talented team. If you look at experience, they have much more experience because of how young the Pistons are. I think you could see them flop in the playoffs just because of their youth. I don't think it's going to happen though, mainly because Cade is a big game player. Like for he has always stepped up in these big games and he's played well. And even when he has struggled for a half or three quarters, he will still put in a performance in the fourth where you're like, yeah, like he's just a gamer. Like I have complete faith in him. And maybe the Knicks have a strategy to take the ball out of his hands and trap him as much as possible, which is something I would probably look to do and see if all these other players can beat you. But I think this is going to be a very good series to see what JB is going to do. Is he going to be the coach that just does his same rotation that he's done pretty much all year? Or is he going to say, this is the matchup, this is the personnel that best fits this matchup, and this is who I'm going to play? That's what I want to see. And you've talked about it all season with the skill set that Duran has and the skill set that Stu has. And is he willing to adjust their minutes based on what's needed to get to win this series?
Talking about trapping Cade Cunningham, I mean, that's going to be New York's number one game plan. Just double team Cade and then make anybody else beat us. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, we're all fans of the Pistons, but do you have faith in anybody outside of Cade to really like step up in Cade's absence, or if Cade gets stifled and like OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges are just double teaming him all series? Do you really have any faith on somebody else stepping up to where the Knicks would stop doing that?
So that's where Duran and Asar's passing ability, I think, has has really helped. And I think that's why they spent the draft pick to get Schroeder another ball handler. I think that's the best approach if you're trying to beat the Pistons is get the ball out of Cade's hands and make someone else do it. Um, I think it would show a lot from the team to see how much they've learned throughout the season as far as what they need to do when teams, because I mean, similar to how Draymond Green was so successful for Golden State, it's like when you get the ball and you have a man advantage, you should be able to punish the other team so they stop doing that. And if we don't have the players that can do it, then obviously that's the next step that has to happen because teams will continue to say we have to stop Cade Cunningham. But that's the advantage to Cade being a bigger guard. It's not easy just to do that to him.
Don't think I didn't notice you're still not answering the question. Do you have faith in anybody other than Cade Cunningham? If he gets trapped and smothered all series, do you have faith in anybody else in this team to step up in his absence?
I do have faith in Asar and Duran, their playmaking. However, and this is where maybe you're like, that means you don't have faith. Um, there have been many times where I don't feel like JB has used Asar enough in that role. Um, and even putting Asar more on ball to prevent them from trapping Cade initially. So there are some things that and this is what was one of my concerns with JB just doing what he's done all season, where I just feel like there's times when he could have done that more with the Asar that he didn't. That makes me nervous about the series.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a star could be somebody to make a difference. And I'm even with you of like Duran's passing ability can make a difference to find Timmy open for threes, to find Beasley open for threes, and the chemistry he and Asar have that Steve Hinton pointed out, shout out Steve, that you and I have talked about along the way. Like those things definitely require you to readjust as the defense and be like, oh, I guess we got to stop double teaming Cade and deal with these guys' passing ability, even Duran from the center position. But for me, I do have a lot of faith in Malik Beasley because they have let him do more on ball stuff. But again, you hinted on this, and we'll put a pin in this and come back to it as JB's tactics as a coach. I fear that it's going to be Schroeder and Tate a lot of times together, which that's a lot easier to defend. Like just let Schroeder shoot threes, who cares? Whereas if you put Beasley in that role instead, then he's been able to get his runner floater. He's been able to get to the line a little bit more, as well as do all his great off ball stuff. Shooting the three, he can shoot off the dribble, he can shoot off the catch, he can shoot off pin downs and screens and with off ball movement. I think that would be a big difference. But again, it's going to require that Beasley take more of a minute load and take the minutes away from somebody like Schroeder, who ends up being more of a liability on both sides of the ball. Um, so yeah, I do think that that's going to be a big difference maker in terms of offense. Beyond that, if although I will just say, if Cade and Beasley come out and just put up bricks, I don't think the Pistons really have a chance.
Oh, I agree with that. If Cade and Beasley are not scoring, we are not going to have enough points to win this series. I just don't see Tobias being able to put up big numbers. I mean, outside of Tim Hardaway having one of his super hot scoring games, and even Duran, me trusting him in that role of making those passes, it wouldn't be very difficult, in my opinion, for New York to show him some looks that we see the inexperienced Duran doing more dribbling and doing things he shouldn't and turning it over a lot and things falling apart quickly. Um, and that's something you'd expect from a Tibbs defense, although this is not a typical Tibbs defensive team. They're not as good as they have been in the
You
past.
mean they don't play defense? That's really
Yes,
what I mean.
they don't play defense. Um, so and that's where depending on how JB wants to handle things, because yes, Duran can help if they're trapping Cade offensively, but if they're also if New York chooses to run an offense where they're spreading the floor and always switching to get Brunson on Duran, like you can't keep playing Duran. You got to play Stu. And then does that mean on the other side of the ball that then we don't have the offense? So it's going to be very interesting to see how New York attacks us and then how JB decides to counter.
Okay, so you switched over to the defense. Let's talk about that on the defensive side of the ball. Who do you think is the difference maker? And like, what is your overall sense of how Detroit's defense is going to affect this playoff series, as well as you just brought it up, the six team ain't exactly, you know, stopping anybody. They haven't been very interested in doing that a lot of times. How's the defense going to be for both teams on this?
So I think the key the key matchup is going to be Asar on Brunson, just because if he's getting in foul trouble, we got lots of problems. And then if he's able to stay on the court to defend Brunson, that allows us to play Duran more, where if we don't have Asar, then we have to play Stu more because you just have to. Like if Asar is not able to be the point of attack defender, that means Duran's going to be showing up a lot more, um, defending the ball because that's what New York's going to try to generate, and that's not going to go well. Not going to go well at all, which means Stu will have to play more minutes, which then affects the team offensively. So, but defensively, I think that's a problem having that much pressure on Asar because Brunson is just so good at, and I mean, it irritates the hell out of me, but he's so good at generating those fouls and creating those issues. And I think Ron Holland will probably be an X factor because we'll need his defense. The problem is he has gotten into too many technical fouls and issues and fights like following Stu's
Hey,
path.
in the playoffs, sometimes you need to do it, man. You got to
I,
throw some blows.
I know we need that, but for him, I just think the pressure and the environment could cause him to overreact to situations that he doesn't, he's not going to have a leash compared to some of the veterans. He's going to be the guy who gets the quick technical or the quick ejection. I mean, we need the intensity, but we do need them to keep it in check.
Yeah, number one, I think Detroit has the bodies to handle Brunson, and then it's really going to be up to like Bridges and OG Anunoby. I mean, if he's fully healthy and okay, Josh Hart, those other supplementary guys to step up and like be the guy in the moment when they need it, be the Allen Houston for this version of this Nick team or the John Stark for the version of this Nick team where like maybe they're not always the guy, but it come playoff time, they ended up stepping up in the moments where Ewing, shout out my guy, Grandmama, LJ, those guys didn't really step up and getting smothered and, everybody else chipped in at that point. So I do think the idea of a star out there, when a star's resting, you can throw Ron on him, maybe again, rookie getting foul trouble. You also have Beasley, who's been able to do it as well. Tate has guarded Brunson from time to time. Brunson is obviously not like that because he's a lot bigger and you can still hang with him. And then you got Stu. Stu has been able to switch and hang with him. And I will give Duran even his flowers there. He's gotten better as the year has worn on, and they haven't put him in switch situations. They've tried to keep him at the rim. He has fouled way less post All-Star break than he did before that. So there's a lot defensively that the Pistons can be in there. But I will say, I mean, the refs could really determine this series when it comes down to, like you just alluded with a star. If a star gets into foul trouble, it kind of messes things up. I still think they can get around it, just depending on the New York shooting and Ron being able to step up and the rest of the guys on defense being able to step up and do things. And we still have Sasser too. Sasser's no slouch. Like he might get only like 10 minutes or whatever here, but he's kind of like break fast in case of emergency. And I mean, if like a star picks up two quick fouls, JB really should just be like, all right, Sasser, go out there and foul away. We don't care. And he can be the one that eats it in the meantime to give a star like Ron some time to rest. So there are those things there, but there are a couple things. Did you want to add anything on New York's defense? Because I looked at the numbers too. I mean, their reputation is that they're not that great of a defensive team, but this year they were ninth in terms of the opponent's points they gave up. So they only gave up 111.7 points per game. They were 25th in field goal percentage, which looks weird. But it means they were one of the better. They're basically like the opponent was the 25th worst team in the NBA, 47.4%. And then from 3-point range, they only gave up 36.7% from three. And then from 2-point range, they gave up 54.8%, that's the one where it's like, okay, that's a little bit concerning. So it's like they defended the three well still. They didn't give up that many points. That's always a good thing. And then in terms of fouls, that is the one part where I was very surprised. They're fourth in terms of fouls, where they gave up 1,407. So they really didn't foul that often either. And again, if it goes in the other direction where the Pistons start catching a bunch of fouls and this Knicks team is really disciplined, not giving up that much fouls, they're holding them to around 111. And then the refs again still just start blowing the whistle. That's probably the area where it's like, all right, we already know how this is going to go, and the refs are deciding the series.
The only other thing is for me is Cat. Like I have never been a big fan of his because he's always just played so weird in the playoffs. Like there are some playoff series where I feel like people get into his head so easy and he's made some stupid fouls and fouled out of games and got into foul trouble. And he has been so up and down in the playoffs. That's why I've never been a fan of people who are like, oh, the Pistons need to trade for him because as like a stretch big, like he would be great with Cade, which I think he would be. Like the prototype of him would be perfect. I just feel like he's just so weird in the playoffs. And I'm really hoping that that continues because we could really benefit from that. Like if maybe Stu can get into his head or something and just get him off, I would love that.
We'll return to that in a minute because I think this is going to veer over into the coaching side of things. Spoiler alert: Tom Thibodeau has the greater advantage for JB in the coaching sphere. Sorry, JB, but I mean Tibbs is Tibbs. But the other things I was looking at with the Pistons of like, ooh, I think if this happens, if they suffer in this regard, like they're going to lose, is they gave up 36.6% on threes for the opponent. So they only allow their opponent to shoot 36.6% from three, which is really good. That's about league average. Holding your opponent to league average from three is good. So if that starts to change, if the Knicks start hitting threes, I think that probably signals like, yeah, this isn't going to go well because from 2 point range, the Pistons give up 53.1%, which is better than the Knicks, but it still ain't good, man. So that was part of it when I was looking at this is like, ooh, so they're still giving up a pretty good percentage inside the 2 point arc, and it starts to paint a fuller picture of their defense. The Pistons ended up having 431 blocks in total, which ends up being ninth. So if you're like, oh, they're still giving up over 53% from 2 point range, they're ninth in blocks. It's like this is where the Jalen Duren and the like Tim Hardaway Jr. And there are a couple guys that we talked about inside the 2 point arc that are giving up a terrible defensive field goal percentage. Like that's where you start to see that stuff, add up. It's like, okay, these other guys are getting blocked. And Stu and Duren in particular make up 190 blocks, I think, out of that 431. So I mean, they make up a pretty good percentage of it, like 40%, something like that. So it's like, okay, two guys make up most of the block. We got like three or four guys giving up like 60%, 6 feet. So that's 6 feet and in. New York's gonna attack the rack. They're gonna attack Duren. They're gonna attack Timmy because Timmy hasn't exactly defended the 2 point shot very well. I mean, that's going to happen no matter what. How they respond, we'll see. Playoffs are starting over, a clean slate. We'll see if anything happens. And like I said, Duren's fouls have become way less post All-Star break. He's had some good defensive possessions down the stretch, so maybe that carries over into the playoffs. But I mean, your weaknesses get exposed in the playoffs no matter who you are. And that's the big weakness for me is like giving up points in the paint. The 3 point one, they've been able to hold people to league average. I mean, Duren had a really good month too in March defending the three. He held guys to like something like 29% from three, which that was the big struggle, and it pulled his overall season total down to 37.5% from three. His defensive field goal percentage. But at the same time, I'm like, well, he only faced like 3 or 4 3 point shooters. Like in one of those OKC games, that wasn't there. He faced Alex Starr twice, and then he faced Bam, who normally isn't a 3 point shooter. But if you remember that Miami game, Bam started shooting a lot more in that game. So, yeah, the sample size, the rest of the guys were like Donovan Clingan and like, what's his name, Hartenstein, and just guys that don't normally shoot, like Ivica Zubac. So if the Knicks start shooting threes and the refs just start blowing fouls on the Pistons, though that double whammy would be like, okay, I guess the NBA's decided that the Pistons ain't winning this one. So just be on the lookout for those two things. That would be my my advice to look for is like if the New York's getting super favorable whistles and then they start hitting threes on top of it, that's going to be really hard to overcome. And this Piston team, they're the opposite of the Knicks in terms of fouls. 1,695 fouls this season. That ranks 27th in the NBA. So bottom three.
Yeah, I think that that whistle could play a big role. And part of that is also, just the youth and inexperience, and especially when you play against a player who's so good at just getting and I hate it because it really messes up the game, but that could be the deciding factor.
Yeah, you would think if you're the commissioner of the league, you'd pay more attention to these things of like, yes, maybe people aren't watching the game because the refs are deciding the outcome rather than the players. So it's like, come on, man. And then but just as a foul, I mean, most of us that are Detroit fans, we don't like foul hunters to begin with. Nobody's a James Harden fan here. Nobody's a Brunson fan here. And so many guys that become quote unquote stars after being role players, like start to do these kinds of things like Halliburton and all that stuff. So yeah, that would just suck, and I think ruin it for both sides. Of like, well, I guess the series was determined by the whistle, so tactics. So our final point of analysis is in the coaching tactics. You and I have been touching on it. I think, I mean, we don't want to diss on JB. I mean, we obviously think he should win Coach of the Year. Probably Kenny Atkinson wins it, you know. Um, but he's definitely in the running. Again, triple the win total, just the job he's done, turn this team around. But in terms of making adjustments in the playoffs, I don't know if you saw any of those Cavs teams. They weren't exactly known for that. He got better incrementally. He helped get the team further into the playoffs every single year. So I'm not going to say he can't make adjustments, but he does have less experience and less track record than a Tibbs. And I mean, everybody disses on Tibbs, like, oh, he only plays his guys and whatever. And it's like, well, come playoff time, like, do you really want him not to play Brunson, Hart, McHale, Pat, and OD like 40 minutes? No, of course not. This is exactly what we want. There's no point of trading for all those guys, right? So he's got his guys set. Whereas JB, we said it before, the team's not as deep. It doesn't have as many guys that, are really good NBA starters. New York's been building for this to make a playoff run and try and make a finals run. JB can be a difference maker, but why are you and I like, ooh, I don't know.
So, and you've tracked it like the entire season, like the whole Duran and Stewart and how they're confounding players because of their skill sets. And just is JB really going to lean into the offense, defense, and use them appropriately at those times? And I mean, you don't have to change your starting lineup, but if you are finding that, yes, Isaiah Stewart is a much better center for this series, are you willing to play him for more minutes than you play Duran, which basically never happens? Um, but if this is a situation where New York's strategy is, yeah, we're going to spread the floor and let, Brunson do his thing, then you have to reduce his minutes. That's just how you match up and how you adjust. And for me, that's going to be the main thing. And then also is is Schroeder the backup point guard for when Cade is off the floor? Or does he keep doing more of this? And part of it was due to injury, but does he do more of this Cade Schroeder lineups where they're on the floor together? Which, if you look at the ratings, it's a small sample size, so it hasn't been bad when Cade and Schroeder play together. I just don't see it as something that works because of how poor his shooting is. If you're already going to have Asar Thompson on the court, which you need him for defensive reasons, that's why the lineups, in my opinion, for the second half of the season were so much better was what Asar does defensively for the team and offensively with his cutting and his passing and just the energy that he brings. That's where I don't feel like Schroeder has the role for this team other than the ball handling. So that's where I'm really curious to see what JB leans into.
I mean, flat out for me, if they play Schroeder like they played him in the regular season and they've been playing him the 25 and a half minutes, 25.2 minutes, that's a dumb idea. Nobody guards him from three. So, like you said, we got a star. I don't know if Ron's going to play like major minutes, but he's still going to play some. You got Duran. Those are three non-shooters. You got Stu, who you don't let shoot threes either. There's another non-shooter. Like, how many non-shooters are you going to play against this Knicks team? That'd be my number one question. It's just like, come on, it's clear. Again, like you said, Schroeder can handle the ball, but how many lineups can you put him in that aren't going to think that shooting part? Caden Beasley, you're totally fine with. Tobias, who knows? I mean, we didn't really touch on Tobias, but I'm sorry, Tobias. His playoff record speaks for itself. Nobody has faith in him. It seems like every time he's gotten in the playoffs, it's just been bad. And he doesn't have to be relied upon here. I'm not saying like he needs to. I'm just saying when it comes to something like this, of like who you're going to play and you have another non-shooter, and then you have the fourth starter guy who is an unreliable shooter, 34.5% this season, and his playoff record isn't that great. Like adding Schroeder to that mix just seems like, okay, cool, he can handle the ball, but how does that attack the Knicks? It doesn't pull pressure off Cade, because once Schroeder has the ball, like Cade's still getting double teamed. You can just let Schroeder dribble the air out of the ball, sag off him, let him shoot threes. He's not shooting from three well at all. He's shooting like 30 some odd percent. Look at that number again, 30.2%. You know, he's not a dynamic athlete. On the defensive side of things, he's scrappy, but he still gets pushed around easily. And then when you play him with somebody like Duran and Timmy in that lineup, two guys who are giving up again like 60% on shots 6 feet and in, you're just asking for all those guys to be attacked. I'm not saying don't play Schroeder, but in this instance, I'm like, Sasser still makes more tactical sense where, sure, he might not be able to get out of trouble the way a Schroeder can with his ball handling, but if Cade's double teamed and he passes it out to Sasser, Sasser's going to knock that 3-point down, man. And if Brunson gets switched on to Sasser, he's got those long arms, he's more hefty, and he can eat some fouls because Sasser at this point is a luxury, and he can still supplement Asar, he can still supplement Ron, he can still supplement Duran and Stu, the non-shooters. I don't know that we're going to bust out Sasser, but again, looking at the rotation, the main rotation before Schroeder got here, Cade, Tobias, Beasley, Timmy, Duran, Stu, Asar, Holland, and then Fontecchio. Like that seems fine enough to me, and who you would want to roll out the 9 guys there in this playoff series. You cross your fingers, Fontecchio can hit some threes. Again, still you're hurting in terms of ball handling. I understand that, but everybody there is bigger, right? I think the smallest guy I just listed off was Beasley, 6'4", 187, and then the next smallest guy I just listed was Timmy at 6'5", 205. Everybody else is like 6'7" or bigger, and a lot of good athletes in there. Like that just seems more of a problem. And why have the Pistons had such success against the Knicks? 3-1. Why, Andy?
Because Cade is awesome.
And yeah, they can't handle Cade's physicality for sure. That's number one.
What is the other reason?
We have the young athletic bodies to match up with them on defense. Star, Holland, Stu, and then when Duran's been able to pitch in and not foul so much, Duran, and then even Fontecchio and Sasser have pitched in here and there. So I'm like, lean more into that. And Schroeder's just one less guy to be picked on. And again, that's why I say Sasser's still there. Like you can throw him out there. realistically, I think they're still probably going to play Schroeder somewhere between like 15 to 20 minutes. But man, I do think he just drags down the lineup. And I would be shocked if he goes out and like really becomes the difference maker in this playoff series. He's the one guy that I'm still like, oh, I'm worried about.
Well, even when we first made the trade, I said I'm okay if he's getting the 15 minutes that Sasser was getting. But if you look, like you said, like he's averaging 25 minutes a game for the Pistons, and part of it was due to injury, but we also said like he's not going to be happy with just 15 minutes. Like he's used to playing more. But me and you both shook our head and we were like, but we don't want him like this is the role that is available for him on this team, and we don't want to see as many of the Cade Schroeder lineups. And again, the analytics for those lineups, they have not been bad, but the sample size is so small, you can't really draw that much. But just looking at his shooting percentages, he's just not the guy we want to have out there. Again, and you already like we've already beat this topic up. That is like with the other players we have on the court, we can't add another non-shooter to the court.
And the final point for me on Schroeder, 51.5% true shooting percentage is what Schroeder ended up on this team. Oh, I don't mince my words. I wouldn't say this unless I was really mad. I saw Mari Sankova tweet out about Schroeder being the second biggest difference maker in terms of like the trades and who's been traded right after Luka. That's dumb. That's one of the dumbest things I've seen. I'm sorry, Amari. I like you, but no. And I mean, this is the guy who's 18th out of the 21 guys that have played this season. Schroeder was 18th in terms of true shooting percentage. He's just wasting too much offense, taking up too much usage. It's only 19.6%, but in the playoffs, if you're a role player, what you got to be is efficient, and what you got to be is supplementing your number one guys. And Schroeder has not been doing that. Everybody else, Fontecchio, Holland, Cade, Kimmy, Asar, Tobias, Sasser, Beasley, Stu, Duran, they all have better free shooting percentages than Schroeder. So if you're still out there defending Schroeder of like why he needs to be out there, remember everybody else still is more efficient than Schroeder. How do you overcome that?
Yeah, you're not going to hear any argument from me there. I mean, unfortunately, it's like the longer you track his shooting numbers, they just seem to keep getting worse. And you've said it on the show before, where it's like, yes, he hit a timely shot, but it's like that's the only shot he hit. Maybe if you would have hit the other ones, you wouldn't have to hit the timely one because your team would be up by enough points where it's not an issue. But that's what I'm looking forward to seeing the most in the playoffs is just to see how JB handles this. And because I mean, maybe they were pushing all these minutes with Schroeder at the end to just make that decision on how badly they want to re-sign him and keep him around, which, we're hoping that's not the case. But hopefully for the playoffs, we run with our best lineups and move on from there.
Yeah. So again, it's all about JB, and to me, like Schroeder just makes less sense playing major minutes in the playoff series for all the reasons I just laid out. And like you said, the Stu and Duran lineup, I'm not even going to say like Stu should play major minutes over Duran. I just think situationally, if JB doesn't use them as he should, like to give you an example, it's 3 seconds left, 5 seconds left. The Knicks are down three. What do you think? Who do you think should be in the center, Andy?
We know who should be the center. Stu should be out on the court. Not a
Yeah,
not a question. Yep.
exactly. And if that happens multiple times, or like Pat starts getting hot and draining threes on Stu, and then they're still just sticking with Duran to run their regular minutes rotation, then it's going to be like, all right, clearly you're not trying enough, or it's just like it wouldn't make much sense when you got the guy on the bench who's better defending threes. Again, the number one rim protector in the NBA, and you're still going to play him like 15, 20 minutes in games that matter the most where you need to win. Wow, that's going to be the other part of it of like, come on, man. And then, like I said, Beasley should eat up 10 of those Schroeder minutes, those 25.2 minutes. No, give 10 of those minutes back to Beasley. I mean, Beasley and Cade are the most important guys on offense. Please, my goodness, play them as much as possible. Push Cade to 40 and then push Beasley to like 35. That would be my plea.
Yeah, I mean, the only time, and I mean, I guess I couldn't say, well, I mean, for me, it would be the only time Schroeder is out on the court is when Cade is resting. Like, that's for me, that's what I would like to see. Because then you either want Beasley or Hardaway spacing the floor, and then Asar or Holland playing defense, and that's like basically what you're running with. And then Tobias. Like during the regular season, before he had any injury concerns, he was just logging a lot of minutes because he's just a glue guy that helps keep everything working. So I would like to see the rotation really tighten up if they're trying to win the games.
Yeah, and really, if the six most played guys, like the top 6 minutes, don't go to Cade, Beasley, Timmy, Tobias, Stu, and Duran, then I think something's wrong because that really should be the top six that they're trying to push and keep out on the court as much as possible against Stu and Duran. If you play them similar minutes, fine with me. Play them situationally where they make the most sense. Beasley, please, please, please play him as much as possible. The second most important guy on the team in terms of offense. Timmy has no conscience. This is where you need no conscience to shoot from three like that. Fire away, man. We need it. He takes charges, even though we diss on him for his 2 point percentage and what he's given up on D. He still does little things like that, taking charges that make difference in playoff games. And then you got Tobias doing all the little things. Please just hit a timely shot here and there. That's all I am asking for in terms of those six guys. And those six guys, again, there's no reason why anybody else would be playing over them in this playoff series.
The only guy you left out was Asar, but you we got it. That's our rotation. Like nobody else. That's where all the minutes should be going. That's it.
Yeah. I did leave out a star because I think he's like the seventh on the verge on the edge, just because we don't know exactly what he is on offense. He's going to make a big part on defense. Everybody else I just listed in terms of the six and why I say Stu Duran just switch, right? You got to account for them on offense. As long as Stu or Duran are with those other four guys, you got to account for them. You can't just leave them alone.
And what was the minute stat that you kept for Asar that when he plays so many minutes?
30 minutes or, well, technically it was 25 minutes or more. They were still pretty good, but it was 26 minutes or more where they started scoring like over 120 points. So, I mean, if they try that in the playoffs too, maybe you instead of Timmy being like, the fifth most minutes or whatever, whereas Stu and Duran you treat as kind of like one player and keep them at the same minute load. Maybe do that with Timmy and Asar then. Like, if Beasley isn't hitting it, Cade needs more space and just play Timmy a little bit more, where it's like, oh gosh, we're not getting any stops on defense. Then Asar can fit in a couple of different spots, whether it's like at the two, at the three. I don't really think he should be at the four just because I think like Tobias has got that pretty good on lockdown. I mean, the way they play Cade is kind of at the four sometimes on defense. That way he doesn't have to run around and guard, smaller, quicker guards. So I would try and keep him away from the four, but I mean, he can play it too if you really need him to.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested in seeing a tight rotation and that 'cause I would really just like to see how well the team plays when that's all you're playing.
So our predictions, Andy. What's your predictions? Final. You can only do this one. Ain't no wishy-washiness here. Your final and only prediction for the Pistons versus the New York Knickerbockers in the first round of the 2025 NBA playoffs. No pressure.
My final prediction is Knicks in 7.
I am going to go Pistons in 7. I do think it's going to go down to like 6 or 7 games, though. I would be very shocked if either team got out in, 4 or 5 games. It would be really, really odd to me because, again, of how well they matched up during the regular season, how like the Knicks seem to not want to engage with this team on defense. And then I just can't see a world in which both Cade and Beasley just kind of fizzle out. And even with the ref ball coming into play, like I don't remember the last time a ref series like really was for one team 100%. Like if they're going to start calling a bunch of stuff like that for Brunson, they're going to start calling a bunch of that stuff for Tate as well. So I think that part, even though I'm worried about it, I do think it would kind of even itself out to where it wouldn't be 4 or 5 games. It'd probably be like six.
For and maybe I finally drank the Kool-Aid on this team, but I just even if they lose the first two games in New York, I don't see their confidence being so shaken that they can't come back home and get some wins. So that's why I'm thinking this is a long series. I just don't think they have the experience, and usually young teams in the playoffs, they don't usually just make a deep run. Usually they, especially since this is their first time for all the young guys, I think it'll be a good learning experience. I'd be so happy if they won.
Play really well in Madison Square Garden is the other thing about this too. Like they've talked about it before. Go listen to the post games anytime they played in the Garden. Like they're amped to be there. They don't really care that everybody's yelling at them and calling them fools and dissing on them. They're just like it's the Garden. Like how can you not be happy to play in the Garden and then to play in LCA as well? So it's a great environment. We're both very excited to see these games, man. It's just a different feel in the playoffs. Been a long time for the Pistons, and even with the Blake Griffin team, and then that last Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, Tobias. Like we went into those playoffs. Well, I shouldn't say we. I'll only speak for myself. I know I and the Pistons crew I was running with at the time went into those playoffs like, well, is this over yet? Because we know this is going to end in four.
Yeah, we unfortunately we knew those teams had no shot. It was like, can we get one just to have the gentleman sweep and not get swept? Can we just get one victory? So yeah, this feels much different.
We have no idea. Like just our predictions. If you were honestly, I picked Pistons in seven because I was going to say Knicks in seven. I don't want us to say the same thing, but I think you and I feel that similar ways. Like we could see this series going either way, and these teams like match up very well. Fantastic coaches, great players, great environments. I hate big cities. I'm not going to lie to you, but if there were only two places I had to live in terms of big cities, number one is New York. I've only ever been to New York once, but it was fantastic. I don't know what people are saying. I mean, I'm kind of ghetto myself and whatever. I wander around, like I ran through Harlem, all through Manhattan into Chinatown or whatever. Like I had the time of my life, and everywhere I went, people were welcoming to me, and I was like learning about the culture and everything there. So shout out New York, man. I love New York and everything about it. And then Detroit, same thing. When I went there, I mean, I'm from Albuquerque. Everybody always dissed on Detroit all growing up, like, RoboCop and all that. So, oh, it's dangerous and blah, blah, blah. But then when I got there, went to the Eastern Market, went into Mexican Town, went into Greek Town, went over to Sweetwater's, beans and cornbread. Like everybody's super nice to me, welcoming. You got cultures from all over the place in Detroit. You got so much great food and people all over the place. Like I love Detroit, man. Love both cities. So couldn't be happier. If I had the money, I would definitely be going back and forth between the two.
Yeah, that would be nice to go to the New York games, Detroit games back. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be an awesome experience.
Yeah, and if you don't notice, I'm wearing my shout out to Naomi, Great Lakes native, hashtag native made. She made this shirt for me. Um, the Lumby artist there based out of Detroit. He makes a lot of cool Lions gear. So look for Great Lakes native on Instagram. Shout out Naomi. Thanks for the shirt.
Yeah, that's a nice shirt, man. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, next time I'll try and wear the Lions one. The Lions one is super cool.
Does
So
she have a
Andy,
piston shirt?
she will
All
shortly.
right.
She just had her first son. So again, congratulations, Naomi, on the baby.
Awesome.
Andy, you got anything else to say before we get out of here?
I'm just excited for Saturday, man. I can't wait to see them play in the playoffs.
Same. I don't. I normally watch it on the computer, but I'm put it up on the big screen here and just have make a day of it, man. It's gonna be awesome.
Yes, sir. I'm excited.
Same here, man. Detroit basketball. Can't wait to hear that again in the playoffs. Amazing. Andy, let everybody know where they can find you before we get out of here.
You can find me on Twitter at D_D_Pistons_fan. I hope this team plays well in the playoffs. That would make us so happy.
Just give us some entertaining basketball. Please. The ref ball, stay out of it, man. Catch you next time. Going it.